We all know that working as a teacher in English provides challenges every day. We have to face 25 to 30 students at a time who are all at different levels of ability. They have varying motivation for working in English and have their own special interests and experiences. There is even a joke that says, if there are 2 students in a group, it is already a mixed ability class. We deal with these mixed ability classes every year, and I guess things won't change anytime soon. We are going to talk about what mixed ability classes are and the challenges they present, but most of all, how we can work in these classes in order to help all the students, be it the underachiever, the average student, or the high proficient one. Mixed ability classes mean classes where students differ greatly in ability, motivation for learning English, needs, interests, educational background, styles of learning, learning speed, or even levels of anxiety. Our feelings are also mixed feelings when working with these classes, right? On the one hand, we walk into the classroom with high expectations, or maybe not high, but still we expect to have a good lesson, which we previously prepared so carefully with appealing materials and creative activities. On the other hand, a mixed ability class can seem so uncooperative. The students can get bored easily, and this can cause commotion in the classroom. Planning the lesson and making work material probably has taken a great amount of our time, and it often ends up being too easy or too difficult for the students, or not even motivating enough for them to join in. This may make us feel frustrated or, in difficult days, unable to cope with the class. Unfortunately, we all have been through this more often than not. How many times have we seen this? More proficient students complete tasks quickly while the rest are just starting to do them. They begin to get annoyed or disturbed while the less proficient feel anxious and pressured. Or more proficient students answer questions quickly, leaving no time for the less proficient to even think. And these end up by giving up. They don't even start. And this list can be long. So, let's try to discuss some strategies to deal with these mixed ability classes. Of course, the strategies won't apply to all classes or may have to be adjusted, but our goal is to give you some tips based on the literature about the topic and maybe provide a starting point from which we can make our lessons with mixed ability classes more rewarding for both teachers and students alike.
Let's start thinking about the bigger picture. Most of the literature about mixed ability classes focus on 2 important issues: organization and choices. Organization is vital to create a good atmosphere. We should not just explain how each lesson is going to develop, but also why it is important, what they are going to learn, and how they are going to work. For example, is it pair work or individual work? Doing this on a daily basis creates routines and a sense of stability and structure, which is helpful to less proficient students. And this should be done in a clear and visible way to the whole class. It also helps students monitor their work and their progress by, for example, using checklists of what to do. Helping the students plan their work and develop study skills is a good way to increase their responsibility for their own learning. You may be thinking, something else to add to my workload. True, but you will only need to do it once and then adjust it when needed. We all know that mixed ability classes usually require some extra preparation. How many times do we spend hours thinking of an activity or a strategy to make things work? So, what are we talking about? A subunit or submodule plan to show the students what they will be doing in the next couple of weeks. Something like this, that we can easily adapt from our annual plan. Imagine that we are starting module 5.3. You can share with the students what they will be learning if you show them your plan. And then, a more specific simple plan to start the lessons with. Or, if you like, and I find this quite effective in terms of creating the sense of stability and structure, show the plan for the following lesson, so they know what to expect. Believe me, if you tell students that they will work on reading skills the following lesson, they will complain. as always, but they will be more mentally prepared for it when they arrive in the classroom. No unpleasant surprises. And to end the lesson or the unit, use a simple checklist to decide if the plan worked, if all has been done, if everything worked more or less according to plan. Back to the bigger picture, some authors refer that the key to a good differentiated classroom is to occasionally include the students in the choice of their topics and the media to work with. Choice is motivating and empowering. Once in a while, we may let students choose what content they study, how they will best learn it, individually, in pairs, in small groups, or with the whole class. What quiz questions they answer. You may say, pick one of the following 3 exercises that you're most confident answering. Students can also vote on when to complete a specific test. When we're scheduling assessment, we may ask them if they prefer to start with the listening test, or the reading, or the writing. That will give them some power over their learning and assessment process. Let's try to work with the students and not only for the students, and maybe they will also work a little bit more for the teacher. The teacher who worries, who plans, who gives them a voice in their own learning process.
Now, before our tips for specific skills, let's just remind us of what Carol Tomlinson says about differentiation. Differentiation is not an assortment of instructional recipes. Rather, it is a way of thinking about teaching and learning to ensure that students receive appropriate classroom experiences. She argues that this differentiation is needed in 3 areas of teaching: the material, the process, and the product. The material can be differentiated by using a wide variety of prompts for developing all the skills: news articles, literary texts, short films, podcasts, songs, poems, etc. The process means how the students work with the material, and it can be differentiated by using whole class discussions, pair work, group work, individual work, etc. The product includes the way the students show what they have learned, for example, through a test, a project, or different kinds of presentations. This is something we always bear in mind in the projects we conceive. There's a lot of variety and opportunities to differentiate the work we do. With the differentiation in material, process, and product already accounted for, if we have a good project to work with in the classroom, let's look at some tips on how to make the most of it.
Tip 1. Fast finishes. It's a good idea to have extra tasks ready for those who finish early, as you're likely to have fast finishes in these classes. So, don't let them get bored. After all, boredom can lead to a lack of motivation or the impression that there's nothing left to learn. That's why it's a good idea to have something up your sleeve. For example, follow-up activities related to the exercises the students have just finished.
10:15, it's Saturday morning. I'm Florian. Currently I make a living making YouTube videos, and this is a day in the life of a video editor. And there are a few things to get done today, so let's get ready and get to work. Okay, I'm at work. But before we get going, I need an energy drink. Let's get going. So there usually are a couple of different videos to edit throughout the day, but to get in the right headspace, I often start with a little bit of a cheer up. I check the latest PewDiePie video and some YouTube drama. Pathetic.
So maybe just put on some letterbox and a lot.
Yes!
Now we're talking.
Sometimes I'm surprised how much people pay for that little amount of work.
Exercises designed to build students' vocabulary in a fun way. Topic-related cultural input exercises. Tip 2. Graded activities. Use level-specific material. If the ability levels among students vary significantly, you can adapt exercises to suit both levels by providing a harder and an easier option. However, be careful not to make this distinction too obvious, as students receiving the easier activity may lose confidence in their abilities. For example, When working on reading skills, start by setting the mood for reading. According to Goldstein, asking questions before reading and using titles, pictures, and specific activities to prompt discussion about what students think a text is about encourages engagement and helps them approach the reading with confidence. This method enhances comprehension and actively involves students in the reading process. You can also differentiate content and process. Adapt the text for students by simplifying difficult words. For example, replace complex vocabulary with easier synonyms for less proficient students, or provide a glossary for challenging terms. Modify post-reading tasks to match students' skill levels. For instance, more proficient students can write complete answers to questions, while the less proficient ones can work on true or false or multiple choice exercises. We can use level-specific material also for grammar, vocabulary, or listening exercises, which are already available and ready to use in most course books. Tip 3. Group pair work. We often wonder how to manage group work. Should we group more proficient students together, less proficient students together, or create mixed ability groups? The best approach depends on the class and the activity. While most tasks benefit from being done in small groups, whether it's a project, an oral discussion, a presentation, or even reading, listening, language, or writing activities, the ideal grouping strategy may vary. You can group more proficient students together and less proficient students in a separate group. With this approach, each group works at its own pace, allowing you to adapt your teaching methods and resources to their specific learning needs. When students are in smaller groups with peers of a similar skill level, they often feel more comfortable and participate more actively in learning activities. This setup also enables teachers to tailor instruction more effectively. Instead of addressing diverse learning needs in a large classroom setting, you can provide targeted instruction, assign level-specific exercises, and offer more individualized support to each group. On the other hand, you can also pair more proficient students with less proficient ones. This setup encourages communication and mutual support. Less proficient students benefit from one-on-one help from their peers, while more proficient students take on a sense of responsibility and reinforce their own learning in the process. However, be mindful not to make the purpose of this pairing too obvious. Sensitivity to students' feelings is key.
And now, our last and perhaps the most outside-the-box tip is create different learning stations and then set groups or mini-classes within your larger class. Each group will work in a learning station in each lesson and should rotate until they've been through all the learning stations. Learning stations can match the skills you want to work on throughout the unit. You can have different stations for individual skills: reading, listening, vocabulary, grammar, writing, speaking, or a combination of different skills, depending on the number of groups you want to set up. Reading and listening, vocabulary and grammar, writing, speaking. Or you can have more creative learning stations: cultural nook, challenge corner, project station, checkout station. Just because a group of students is taking the same class doesn't mean they have to do the same thing. If you set mini-classes in your mixed-level classes, you can take time to work with each group independent of the others. You can call one mini-class at a time and work with those students, giving them the instructions they need. During this instruction, the other students can work on their own assignments at their desks until their turn up front. You can do this from time to time. You don't have to make it a daily practice, but it can be a nice change in routine for the students.
As a conclusion, diversity in the classroom implies diversity in the methods and approaches, because we already have a huge diversity of materials and activities available. We won't succeed in managing mixed ability classes without changing our perspective. It doesn't mean we have to change the way we work all of a sudden. Only by experimenting with different methods may we get different results, And perhaps mixed ability classes will feel less like a difficult challenge and more like a rewarding experience for both teachers and students. Thank you for watching.
Lei Educação, um ponto de encontro.